How's it going, everybody? Splamicastic here, and today we're going to do part 2, or story 2 of the Creepypasta series of Pen Pal. So this is the second story of the Creepypasta. It's one of my favorite stories out of the bunch, but I don't know, I guess I can't really say that. They're all my favorite, and I realize I look like crap right now because it's like almost 2 o'clock in the morning, and I'm super duper tired, and I just want to go to bed, but I have to edit this video so you guys can see it. So I hope you guys do enjoy the video because I need to get to work. It's really hot in this room, and yeah, so I want to thank you guys for watching the video. Make sure to hit subscribe if you haven't already, and hit like and comment down below if you want to comment. So see you guys later. Bye. Enjoy the story. A couple of days ago, I posted a story called Footsteps here on No Sleep. There are a number of questions that made me curious about certain details about my childhood, and so I spoke with my mother. Exasperated by my questions, she said, "Oh, why don't you just tell them about the goddamn balloons if they're so interested?" As soon as she said that, I remembered so much about my childhood that I had forgotten. This story will provide some greater context to the previous story, which I think you should read first, though the order isn't of vital importance. Reading that story first will put you in my place more effectively, since I remember the events of Footsteps first. If you have any questions or anything, feel free to ask, and I'll try to answer them. Also, both these stories are long, so heads up for that. I'm just hesitant to leave out any details that might be important. When I was about 5 years old, I went to an elementary school that, from what I can understand, was really adamant about the importance of learning through activity. It was part of a new program designed to allow children to rise at their own pace. And to facilitate this, the school encouraged teachers to come up with really inventive lesson plans. Each teacher was given the latitude to create his or her own themes which would run through the duration of the grade. And all of the lessons, including math, reading, etc., would be designed in the spirit of the theme. These themes were called groups. There was the space group, a sea group, an earth group, and the group I was in, community. In kindergarten in this country, you don't learn much except how to tie your shoes and how to share, so most of it isn't very memorable. I only remember 2 things very clearly. I was the best at writing my name, at least the right way, and the balloon project, which was the hallmark of the community group, since it was a pretty clever way to show how a community functioned at a really basic level. You've probably heard of this activity. On one Friday, I remember it being a Friday because I was excited about the project and it being the end of the week. Toward the beginning of the year, we walked into the classroom in the morning and saw that there was a fully inflated balloon tied off with a string of tape to each of our desks. Sitting on each of our desks was a marker, a pen, and a piece of paper and an envelope. The project was to write a note on the paper, put it in the envelope, and attach it to the balloon, which we would draw a picture of if we wanted. Most of the kids started fighting over the balloons because they wanted different colors. But I started on my note. I had thought about it a lot. All the notes had to follow a loose structure, but we were allowed to be creative within those boundaries. My note went something like this. "Hi, you found my balloon. My name is Steven, and I attend Roxborough Elementary School. You can keep the balloon, but I hope you write me back. I like Mighty Max, exploring, building forts, swimming, and friends. What do you like? Write me back soon. Here's a $1 bill for the mail." On the dollar I wrote 4 stamps right across the front, which my mom said was unnecessary, but I thought it was genius. So I did it. The teacher took a Polaroid of each of us with our balloons and had us put them in the envelope along with our letter. They also included another letter that I assume explained the nature of the project and a sincere appreciation for anyone else's participation in writing back and sending photos of their city or neighborhood. That was the whole idea, to build a sense of community without having to leave the school, and establish a safe contact with other people. It seemed like such a fun idea. Over the next couple of weeks, letters started to roll in. Most pictures came with different landmarks, and each time a new letter would come in, the teacher would pin the picture to a big wall map we had put up for showing where the letter had come from and how far the balloon had traveled. It was a really smart idea because we actually looked forward to coming to school to see if we had gotten our letter. For the duration of the school year, we had 1 week where we could write back to our pen pals or another student's pen pals just in case our letter hadn't come in yet. Mine was the last to arrive. When I came back into the classroom, I looked at my desk once again not to see any letter waiting for me. But as soon as I sat down, the teacher approached me and handed me an envelope. I must have looked so excited because as soon as I was about to open it, she put her hand over mine and said, "Please don't be upset." I didn't understand what she meant. Why would I be upset? My letter had finally come. Initially, I was mystified that she would even know what was in the envelope, but now I realized that the teachers had screened the contents to make sure that there was nothing obscene. But all at the same, how could I be disappointed? When I opened my envelope, I understood. There was no letter. The only thing that was in the envelope was a Polaroid, but I couldn't really make out what it was. It looked like a patch of desert, but it was too blurry to decipher. It appeared as if the camera had been moved while the picture was being taken. There was no return address, so I couldn't even write back if I wanted to. I was crushed. The school year pressed on, and the letters had stopped coming for nearly all the other students. After all, you can only continue written correspondence with a kindergartner for so long. Everyone, including myself, had lost interest in the letters completely. Then I got another envelope. My excitement was rejuvenated. I reveled in the fact that I was still getting a letter when most other pen pals had abandoned their involvement. It made sense that I get another delivery. There had been nothing but a blurry picture in the first one, so this was probably to make up for that. But again, there was no letter at all. Just another picture. This one was more distinguishable, but I still didn't understand it. The photograph was angled way up, catching the top corner of a building, and the rest of the image was distorted by a lens flare from the sun. Because the balloons didn't travel very far, and because they were all launched on the same day, the board became a bit cluttered, and so the policy for students still exchanging letters became that they could take the photographs home. My best friend Josh had the second highest number of pictures taken home by the end of the year. His pen pal was really cooperative and sent him pictures from around the neighboring city. Josh took home, I think, 4 pictures. I took home nearly 50. The envelopes were still opened by my teacher, but after a while I stopped even looking at the pictures. However, I saved them in one of my drawers that I housed all my collections of rocks, baseball cards, comic book cards, Marvel metal cards for those who remember, and little miniature baseball batting helmets that I'd get out of a vending machine from Winn-Dixie or after t-ball games. With the school year being over, my attention turned to other things. My mom had got me a small snow cone machine for Christmas that year, and Josh really coveted it. So much that his parents bought him a slightly nicer one for his birthday, towards the end of the year. That summer we had an idea that we would set up a small snow cone stand to make money. We thought we'd make a fortune selling snow cones at $1. Josh lived in a different neighborhood, but we eventually decided that my neighborhood would be better because there were a lot of people who cared for their lawns. The yards in my neighborhood were slightly bigger. We did this for 5 weekends in a row until my mom told us we had to stop. I've recently come to understand why she did that. On the 5th weekend, Josh and I were counting our money. Because we both had separate machines, we had a separate stack of money that we put together into one stack and then we split it. Eventually we made a total of $16 that day, and as Josh paid out my 5th dollar, a feeling of profound surprise consumed me. The dollar said 4 stamps. Josh noticed my shock and he asked if he had miscounted. I told him about the dollar and he said, "That's cool, man." As I thought about it, I came to agree. The idea that the dollar had made it right back to me after changing so many hands floored me. I rushed inside to tell my mom, but my excitement, coupled with her being distracted by the phone, made my story incomprehensible, and she simply responded by saying, "Oh wow, that's neat." Frustrated, I ran back outside and told Josh I had something to show him, back in my room. I opened the door and took out a stack of envelopes and showed him some of the pictures. I started with the first picture, and we went through about 10 before Josh lost interest and asked if I wanted to go play in the ditch, a dirt ditch down the street from my house, before his mom came to pick him up, so that's what we did. We had a dirt war for a while, but it was interrupted several times by rustling in the woods around us. There were raccoons and stray cats that lived there, but this was making a little too much noise. And we traded guesses on what it was in an attempt to scare each other. My last guess that it was a mummy. but in the end, Josh kept saying that he insisted it was a robot because of the sounds that we heard. Before we left, he got a little serious and looked me straight in the eyes and said, "You heard it, didn't you? It sounded like a robot. You heard it too, right?" I had heard it, and since it did sound mechanical, I agreed it probably was a robot. It's only now I understand what we heard. When we got back, Josh's mom was waiting for him in the kitchen table with my mom. Josh told his mom about the robot. Our moms laughed and Josh went home. My mom and I ate dinner and then I went to bed. I didn't stay in bed long before I crept out and decided that due to today's events, I would revisit the envelopes since the whole affair seemed much more interesting. I took a look at the first envelope and then put it on the floor, set the blurry desert Polaroid on top, then I laid the second envelope right to the next of it, and placed the oddly angled Polaroid of the building's top corner on the top, and did this with each picture until they formed a grid about 5 by 10. I was always taught to be careful with things I was collecting, even if I wasn't sure if they were valuable. I noticed that the pictures gradually became more decipherable. There was a tree with a bird on it, a speed limit sign, a power line, a group of people walking into some building. And then I saw something that vexed me so powerfully that I can now, as I write this, distantly remember feeling dizzy and capable of only a single repeating thought. Why am I in this picture? In this photograph of the group of people entering the building, I saw myself holding hands with my mother in the very back crowd of people. We were at the very edge of the photo, but it was undeniably us. As my eyes swarmed over the sea of Polaroids, I became increasingly anxious. It was a really odd feeling. It wasn't fear, it was the feeling you get when you're in trouble. I'm not sure why I was flooded with that feeling, but I was floundering in the distant sense that I had done something wrong. And this feeling only intensified as I looked at the rest of the photos. After that one, that had so powerfully struck me. I was in every photo. None of them were close shots. None of them were only of me. But I was in every single one of them. Off to the side, in the back, on the bottom of the frame, some only had the tiniest part of my face captured in the very edge of the photo, but nevertheless, I was there. I was always there. I didn't know what to do. Your mind works in funny ways as a kid, but there was a large part of me that was afraid of getting in trouble simply for being up. Since I had already had the looming feeling of having done something wrong, I decided that I would wait till tomorrow. The next day, my mom was off to work and spent most of the morning cleaning up around the house. I watched cartoons, I imagine. I waited until I thought it was a good time to show her the Polaroids. When she went out and got the mail, I grabbed a couple of pictures and put them on the table right in front of me. As I sat waiting for her to come back in, when she returned, she was already opening the mail and threw some junk mail into the trash can. And I said, "Mom, can you come here for a second? I have these pictures. Just give me a second, honey. I need to mark these on the calendar." After a minute or two, she came and stood right behind me and asked me what I needed. I could hear her shuffling with the mail, but I just looked at the Polaroids and told her about them. As I explained more and pointed at the pictures, her frequent uh-huhs and okays decreased, and she suddenly completely quiet, only making little noise with the mail. The next noise I heard from her sounded as if she was trying to catch a breath in a room that had no air left in it. At her last struggling gasps were conquered with her simply dropping the remaining mail onto the table and ran to the kitchen to get the phone. "Mom, I'm sorry. I didn't know about these. Please don't be mad at me." With the phone pressed against her ear, she was walking and running back and forth and shouting into it. I nervously fiddled with the mail sitting next to my Polaroids. On the top envelope had something sticking out of it that I thoughtlessly, anxiously pulled at until it came out. It was another Polaroid. Confused, I thought that somehow one of my Polaroids had slipped into the stack when she threw the mail down. But when I turned it over and looked at it, I realized that I hadn't seen this one before. To my dismay, it was me, but this was a much closer shot. I was surrounded by trees and was smiling, but it wasn't just me. I noticed that Josh was there too. This was from yesterday. I started yelling for my mom, who was still screaming into the phone. I repeatedly yelled for her until she responded with a, "What?" And I could only think to ask, "Who are you calling?" "I'm talking with the police, honey." "But why? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do anything." She answered me with a response that I never understood until I was forced to revisit these events from the earliest years of my life. She grabbed the envelope off the table, and the picture of Josh and I spun and slid, landing next to the other Polaroids right in front of me. She held the envelope up to my eyes, but I could only look at her and watch as the color began draining out of her face. With tears welling up in her eyes, she said that she had to call the police because there was no postmark.